Welcome back, everyone. Still working on these folders from the previous videos. About to continue working. I'm going to be working on stop pin for the frame locks. I'm drilling a small hole because I'm going to hide the 1/8 pin down in there, but I need a lineup hole. And it'll be on the pocket clip side, and I'm going to try to have the show side smooth. That's the way I like to do them. But I got a marker here. Got a small bit, and I'm going to drill down, go in about halfway into the other scale. These are two pieces that are glued together. They're profiled to shape, all that fun stuff. You could check out the previous videos to see what I've done there. Right now, I've got a stop set that'll take this bit down in there about halfway of the other scale. Go through this one and in about halfway. Then I will take an end mill after I separate them and bore the other side out to give it a square bottom, and maybe touch it with a reamer to make sure the stop pin will go in there. It'll stop, and then we'll have a, it'll be a nice hidden pin there. So we're gonna get that done. Using my new to me little mini mill here for drilling these little holes and things. Works great so far. I hope everybody is good and warm. Got this storm. It's Saturday here. By the time you see this video, it'll be over. But hopefully you're not too badly impacted, because I know it's going to be bad. A lot of ice, especially here in South Louisiana. With the humidity, it's crazy. We get cold weather like that, ice builds up on power lines and tears them down. And we don't have any of those fancy underground things. So, all right, let's get this done. I'm just going to peck drill it down in there till it stops. I'm going to let it line up by itself, because I've got a little punch mark there. There it is. I'll occasionally reset. I'm using 100% carbide bit, or solid carbide they call it. Just take my time. It doesn't take much to snap one of these bits. You're talking about a needle-sized bit. And that's it. So I hit my stop, and we're down in this other side about halfway. And I'm going to separate them in here shortly and go ahead and drill out the 1/8 side on both sides, and it'll just be hidden in there with a very small hole there, needle-sized hole. And by the way, this is a temporary light here. I had to have something here to see the other side with my mill. It's something I had just laying around. I got to get one that I can mount on the machine. Quite a few things I'm going to do here to this machine. I'm going to put a DRO and a good light and an ER32 collet holder in there, because I've got a full set and I can use them. So now what I'm going to do is drill the handle screw holes for the 2 liner locks. And I did a little layout on these. One of these is going to be a twist and the other's a feather. The feather is I'm going to do a keyhole bolster and handle. So I lay them out first to kind of make sure where I want my holes, make sure everything is laid out right before I drill them, because I'm planning for the keyhole. This one is going to be my half moon handle bolster, and that'll be the twist. So I'm just laying out. I'm going to drill these, center punch them first, and get them drilled. It really pays to plan and get them right. And this will be the tap size bit 5/64 that I'm going to be drilling here. And I want I won't tap anything right now because I'm going to use those when I go to drill through them to the handles. They will be my lineup holes. I'll clamp the handle material to the liner and drill through. But right now I can get my holes the same on both sides, matching, by drilling through now just the liners, and then I'll go separate them, heat them up, separate them. Make sure I'm right here. Oh, I moved. It's okay. Don't want to get off on this stuff. So that's going to be the feather pattern blade, and my holes will work out just like that. I'll do this one, and we're going to get over to the drill press. All right, I've got a 5/64 bit in here. I know you probably can't see this because of my hand in the way. This is a dull bit. I broke the other one. I got more on the way, but this is what we have right now. Get this knocked out. Got to move this stop that I had set up. All right, let's try that again. And that's all I'm going to do there to all of these holes. What I really need is a green grit wheel for my bench grinder, or a diamond wheel, and I could sharpen those carbide bits. I need to invest in one. We used to have a green grit wheel in the shop, machine shop, and you could cut carbide like butter. All right, now what I want to do, I know it's probably hard to see with this mill vise here, but I'm going to come in here and drill out this spotting hole I made to 1/8. Remember, it's going to be hidden on one side. All you'll see over here is a spotting hole on this pocket clip side, but on the show side, you won't see anything. Now, there are other ways to do that. When it comes to a spotting hole, whether you need it or not, but this is the most simplest method. If I had a CNC, you would never even need that, but I don't have a CNC. I'm a manual guy right now, and probably will be. But what I've done is set a stop here to go about halfway, just like I did when I spotted that hole. And I'm just going to come down in there to the stop. I'm just going to touch it first to make sure my bit don't walk. Let it line up. And that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to ease it in there till it stops. Turn it up just a little bit. And that's it. Now I'm going to take an end mill and bottom cut it. I'm going to take a 1/8 end mill and bottom cut it. You don't have to do that. I could probably just go over to my reamer and ream it. But the reamer's not really made for bottom cutting, so I don't want to put too much pressure on my reamer. All right, let me change this out after I do the other one. One of the things I had to do when I set this little mini mill up is I had to go in there and tighten the gibs up on the column because it had a little bit of pull when you came down on it, and sure enough it had a loose gib down there, but that was easily fixed. I'm just knocking this burr off these. Then I'm going to set the end mill up over there and bottom cut it. That way the pin goes all the way down to the bottom without a taper in that hole. Because I'm going to square cut the pins on the end as well. A drill chuck is just not that great for end mills, I can tell you. But we're going to do it because I'm not doing any side loading, stuff like that. Now if I can figure out what I did with my key. I've got to reset the stop as well. That's no problem. I'm going to check run out. Looks pretty good. Sometimes you can spin that bit in there if you got some wobble. Jacob's chucks are famous for it, but this in here, I replaced the other one. Works pretty good. All right, so I'm set up with the end mill, but what I want to tell you, this is not the easiest thing to do and can cause you a problem trying to plunge an end mill in a hole that's the same size. I always take a countersink. This is a carbide countersink, and I lightly chamfer that edge of that hole so that the end mill can find center without, it'll walk all over the place and tear it out of your hand. You have to be very careful doing this. There are better ways. This is the way I like to do it though. So I'm gonna come in here, cut it down to the same depth with this end mill. I need to have my glasses on. All right, so I've got it bottom cut to that same depth. In other words, it's square in there all the way to the bottom. Do that to all of them. I'm going to test the pin, and if it's not snug or doesn't want to go, I'm going to take it over to the reamer. They're a little too tight. I can't get them in there very well. Close though. So I'm just going to take the reamer. This is a 1/8 reamer, and clean it up a little bit. And let's check it out. Oh yeah, good and tight. All you have on this side is that little spotting hole. The other side, you won't see anything. All right, so I'll make sure they all fit, and we're going to move on. Now I'm going to go ahead and thread these back spacers. I took them over to the surface grinder and took them down to pretty much the closest or final size, final thickness. Now the Damascus ones will have to be heat treated. I like to heat treat them. To me, it brings out the contrast. Some people say it don't, but I see it with my own eyes. So I'm going to have to heat treat those, and then I'll hit them again with the surface grinder and take a couple thousandths off and get them. Right now I'm using a thread forming tap. It basically pushes the threads into the hole, whereas a regular tap will cut those threads. I'll use the regular tap on the liners because they're thinner, and it makes a better holding thread. For these though, I use a thread forming tap and works great. I put just a little fluid on there to make things easier. And I'm just hand tapping these with a homemade hand tap. You can use a Tap-O-Matic if you got one. Obviously I don't, but for a little small batches, by the time you get that thing set up and get all the kinks out of it, I'm done. And this works pretty good. You just have to take it easy. You can break one of these $20 taps real quick. Goes pretty quick though. Again, it's just pushing the threads in there. And it'll go right on through. I'm tapping the Damascus spacer right now, so that can be a little challenging. You've got 15N20 and 1084 in there, a little different. Sometimes a 15N20 acts funnier. Even though I haven't hardened this yet, you know, I did a full anneal on this, and you still get a little hardness there. I say full anneal, I did a fast DET anneal, just so I could cut it with bandsaw and drill it and all that stuff. But we got that one done. I'm going to do the 2 Framelocks because I'll be threading into the backspacer. Whereas the liner locks, I'll be threading into one of the liners. So I'll drill through the backspacer once I get my handle holes drilled. All right, with that one threaded and tapped, or both of those Framelocks, I start putting them in trays and getting everything separated. They're all numbered. I engrave a little number on the back spacers and inside places that will not be seen. That way I keep all the parts matching and I don't get them mixed up. And I start putting the hardware in these trays. And what really, really gripes me is I make an order. Takes a week and a half to get here. And I've got the wrong pivot screw heads. They're threaded 864. I need 664. Everybody uses 664. Who uses 864? So I got to reorder those. And that $40 is going to be fishing weights or something. Anyway, and here's another thing that gripes me. That's my fault for not really looking, you know. You got these convoluted websites. I don't know who's designing them, but it's the same. There's a few of them like that. Some of them are awesome, but it's crazy. But anyway, here's an example. This bearing should be 0.358. I'm just matching bearings. Perfect. 358. I know you can't see that, but that's what my pocket cutter is. It'll cut 0.358. Same batch of bearings. Here we go. 0.3595. It's not going to fit the pocket. I got another one there's 0.360. Quality control, man, I don't get it. But fortunately, I have enough bearings to make it work. I don't know what I use that for. I can take an end mill and overcut it to, if I'm getting a real bind. But everything to simplify my life in doing this stuff gets shot down when you got problems like that. And so now I've got to pull off of these liner locks. I don't have the right threaded pivots, and I'm gonna focus on the 2 frame locks because I got to place an order because of me not paying very good attention for these now fishing weights. 864. Who uses that? I don't. All right, I got those tapped, and I went inside and reordered my screw up, and I got some extra bearings and a few other things while I'm ordering, because you're going to get shipping charges, same shipping charge, flat rate stuff. Might as well go ahead and get something else you need. Right now, I'm going to drill the pass-through hole for the 256 screw. I've already got all the holes drilled for the frame locks, and now, through the backspacers and all that, I'm going to drill the pass-through. Then I'm going to take it over to the mill and countersink for the button head screw. Did you see that scale turn a little bit? That's why I have that stop there. Just a bolt. And keeps you from helicoptering. But I don't like to clamp it down because I like it bit to find center. Now what I've got here is I've got a counterbore in here for the 256 button head screw, and I've got it bottomed up here on top of the scale or the frame. And I went ahead and zeroed my DRO. Zero right there. I want to go down about 55 thousandths. The head takes up about 41, 42 thousandths. But I don't want it just flush right now because I'm going to take some material off of these scales when I start rounding them over and, contouring them. So I'm going to go down another 8 thousandths or so. I'll be going down about close to 15 thousandths, not 8, but I've got my DRO zeroed. I'm gonna come here and I'm just gonna look at it and go down around 55 thousandths. So I unlock my spindle. I'm gonna let it come up. I'm gonna come back down and check it and see if I'm zero, and I'm dead on zero. So I know it's good. All right. All right, I went down 55 thousandths. I've got a screw here. Button head screw. It should be well below surface there. It's very nice. I don't know if you can see that, but by the time I contour it, it'll expose more of it. It'll be closer to the flush there. I've had to replace the screws because I grind the heads off, and I might as well go ahead and just sink them a little more. But that's pretty good, around 55 thousandths. Another little tip, whenever you're doing this, make sure you mark the side that you're countersinking. I've got red here marked where the screws are. You countersink the wrong side, excuse me, countersink the wrong side, and you've screwed up. I mean, it'll work, but you've reduced the webbing in there when you do the other side. So mark it out. Now I'm doing the same thing on the decorative screw for the pivot, and I'll flip it over and do the bearing pocket the same way. Now, you can do this, depending on the size of your pivot head with an end mill the right size. The reason I use these end mills or these counterbores is they're sized for the pivot head I'm using, so I don't have a gap. Now, CNC, they just use a small end mill there and it goes and cuts the pocket to perfect size, but we're talking about manual making these folders here. So I'm gonna go down here about 65 thousandths for my decorative pivot head. And let's see how that goes. I've already got it zeroed, and now I'm gonna come up. I'm just gonna check it again, same way. Zeroes out, I'm gonna go down 65 thousandths. I'm gonna put my spectacles on so I can see. That should be it. Yeah, I know, I'm getting stuff everywhere. I also clamp it down. And I do that because this thing creates a lot of torque. It's a big cutting surface there. And you don't want to helicopter this and, damage your hand or mess up your pivot hole there. So I get it down in there. When I set zero, I come in here and I lock it in. And I set my zero and clamp it right there. Then I pull out, check it to make sure it hadn't shifted and is hitting somewhere. Because that pilot on this counterbore is very, very tight. I mean, it's like 0.1865. I mean, it is tight. So you want to make sure you do that because it will come out of your hand. I'm going to do that on all these outside these scales. Again, I've marked them so I know which outside and which is inside. And I'll cut the bearing pockets now. All right, let me show you what I'm dealing with now. Cutting bearing pockets now. So they're flipped over. So I've got a bearing pocket cutter in here from the same company. I've cut about 6 folders with this cutter. Anyway, it's dull now. I did buy a decorative screw cutter. It's here, it worked just fine. But now this one won't cut. So what it is now is just a glorified center finder. So I've got center using it, and I'm gonna have to go to an end mill that I have cut probably 50 pockets with before I started using these. I don't know what kind of carbide that stuff is, but what I'm gonna do is find center and take this pocket cutter out of there, slip in this end mill, go back down, zero, and cut down to my depth, which is around 42 thousandths. So all of that was for naught having this cutter. If I'd have had a new one, I wouldn't have this issue. So I've got center now, and I've got to leave enough room because I got this round column mill. Once you move that head, loosen that head, you're screwed up. So I have to leave enough room here that I don't move anything. So I maintain center. Take this glorified center finder out of there now. That's all it is, because it won't cut. And I have to take it all the way out, slip in the cutter that actually works. Actually, I have to change it out, change the collet out. See how everything just slowed down? Got it changed out. And I haven't moved anything. If I do, then my bearing won't be center of that pivot. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it. I'm zeroed out. Get it done. Over with, just like that. All right, I've got to get all these cut and move on. If any of y'all are ever wondering about my eyeglasses or glasses I use in my shop, all kind of different kind of glasses, they're my wife's glasses. I just take them out of a bowl. She keeps her reading glasses in, find one that I like. So that's why they look feminine. I don't care. I just need to see. But what I've got done now is I went ahead and cut the screws and screwed into the backspacers. And so we got our blade in there. Backspacer has to be cut down in there some, but if you remember, that's kind of, you know, a given. And I will cut it down till I get the blade dropped in there where I want it. But this lets me know how everything's looking. My spacing looks good. You know, I don't have the backspacer thicker than it needs to be or thinner than it needs to be, meaning I've got my bearings set in the pocket at the right depth, and I've got the right gap on each side, and my backspacer matches that distance from inside to inside. So that's pretty good. So the next thing I do is cut the pivot length, cut the pin, stop pin, and lock bar work, profiling, and a lot of other stuff. But this video is running way long, and we're gonna have to cut it here. We'll pick it up on the next video. More work here in the shop. Really, I'm not doing a tutorial, but may as well explain stuff as I go along. So if you got any questions, please leave them down below. I appreciate you watching. I want to thank my patrons, and we're going to see you on the next one. Stay warm.